Have you ever noticed that some of the smartest people you've met didn't actually seem that smart at first? They weren't the loudest person in the room. They didn't constantly prove they were right. They weren't trying to impress anyone. And that's exactly what makes them so interesting. For decades, psychologists searched for the habits that truly separate highly intelligent people from everyone else. What they discovered was surprising. Intelligence isn't just about solving difficult math problems or remembering random facts. In everyday life, it often appears as subtle behaviors that most people completely misunderstand. In fact, some of these behaviors are so ordinary that you may have been doing them for years without realizing they're connected to higher intelligence. Maybe you've been called indecisive. Maybe people think you overthink everything. Or perhaps you've always felt different but never understood why. What if those traits weren't weaknesses at all? What if they were clues that your mind processes the world in a very different way? Today, we'll explore 7 psychological behaviors that research has repeatedly linked with higher intelligence. And while none of these habits alone can measure your IQ, together they reveal something fascinating about how an intelligent mind works. The last sign is especially surprising because millions of intelligent people mistake it for a personal flaw. Let's begin. Sign #1. You care more about being accurate than being right. Imagine arguing with someone who refuses to change their opinion. No matter how much evidence you show them, their answer never changes. Most of us have met someone like that. Now compare them with someone who calmly says, "You know what? I hadn't thought about it that way." At first glance, that second person might seem less confident. Psychology suggests the opposite. One of the strongest characteristics of highly intelligent people is something called cognitive flexibility, Instead of treating beliefs like permanent possessions, they treat them like working ideas. When better information appears, they update those ideas. To some people, that looks inconsistent, but to a psychologist, it often looks like intellectual maturity. Our brains naturally protect beliefs we've held for a long time. Admitting we're wrong can feel uncomfortable because it challenges our identity. Highly intelligent people experience that discomfort too. The difference is, they don't let their ego make the final decision. They ask a different question. Instead of asking, "How can I prove I'm right?" they ask, "What's actually true?" That small shift changes everything. Researchers studying reasoning and decision-making have found that people with stronger analytical thinking are generally more willing to revise their conclusions after receiving new evidence. Not because they're uncertain, but because they're curious. Ironically, the people who sound the most certain are not always the most knowledgeable. Psychologists often point to the Dunning-Kruger effect, which shows that people with limited knowledge frequently overestimate how much they know. The more you learn about a subject, the more complexity you begin to notice. Questions replace certainty. Nuance replaces simple answers. That's why genuinely intelligent people often sound more thoughtful than confident. So if you've ever changed your opinion after learning something new, don't see it as weakness. It may actually be one of the healthiest signs that your brain values truth more than pride. And that's a rare quality. Sign #2. You delay important work because you see the bigger picture. Here's something that confuses a lot of intelligent people. You can finish small tasks in minutes, answer emails, organize your desk, run errands, no problem. But when it comes to the project that actually matters, the business you've dreamed about, the book you want to write, the career move that could change your life, you suddenly freeze. Days become weeks, weeks become months, and eventually you start wondering, why am I procrastinating if I care so much? Most people assume the answer is laziness. Psychology tells a more complicated story. Highly intelligent people often imagine the finished result long before they begin. Their brain doesn't only see the first step, it sees every possible mistake, every weakness, every way the final outcome could fall short of the vision already living inside their mind. That level of awareness creates pressure. The higher your standards become, the harder it feels to produce something that lives up to them. Psychologist Carol Dweck's research on learning and achievement helps explain why capable people sometimes hesitate before meaningful challenges. When your identity becomes connected to doing something well, starting imperfectly can feel surprisingly difficult. It's not the work you're avoiding, it's the possibility that reality won't match the picture in your imagination. Perfection becomes a gatekeeper, and perfection never opens the door. Of course, this doesn't mean all procrastination is a sign of intelligence. Sometimes procrastination is simply poor habits or lack of motivation. But when it consistently happens only with the projects that matter most, it may be because your brain already understands how much effort true excellence requires. The solution isn't waiting until you feel perfectly ready, because that moment rarely comes. The solution is accepting that every remarkable achievement begins with an imperfect first draft. Every best-selling author once stared at a blank page. Every successful entrepreneur started with an unfinished idea. Every expert was once a beginner. Intelligence gives you the ability to imagine excellence. Wisdom is learning to begin before you've reached it. And that's where many truly intelligent people finally unlock their greatest potential. In the next part, we'll explore 3 more surprising behaviors, including why intelligent people often say, "I don't know," why shallow conversations leave them mentally exhausted, and why some of the smartest minds are also the most emotionally sensitive. Sign #3. You're comfortable saying, "I don't know." Think about the last time someone asked you a difficult question. Did you immediately give an answer, or did you pause, think for a moment, and admit you weren't completely sure? Strangely enough, that second response is often associated with higher intelligence. We usually assume smart people always have answers. Movies reinforce this image. The genius walks into the room, instantly solves the problem, and leaves everyone speechless. Real life is very different. The more someone learns about a subject, the more they realize how much they still don't understand. Every answer reveals 10 new questions. Every discovery uncovers another layer of complexity. That's why genuinely intelligent people are often surprisingly cautious when making bold claims. They understand that certainty can be dangerous when the evidence is incomplete. Psychologists frequently connect this pattern to the opposite side of the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with little knowledge often feel extremely confident because they can't yet see what they're missing. Experts experience the reverse. Their deeper understanding exposes countless exceptions, variables, and unanswered questions. Imagine standing on top of a small hill. Your view is limited. The world seems simple. Now imagine standing on a mountain. Suddenly, you can see valleys, rivers, forests, and countless paths stretching in every direction. Knowledge works the same way. The higher you climb, the larger the unknown becomes. That's why intelligent people rarely rush to conclusions. They're willing to live with uncertainty while gathering more information. And in today's world, where everyone seems pressured to have an opinion on everything, that's becoming increasingly rare. So if you've ever felt uncomfortable pretending to know something you don't, if you've ever said, "I'm not sure, I'll need to learn more, I could be wrong," don't mistake that for insecurity. Sometimes it's the clearest sign that your thinking is grounded in reality instead of ego. Sign #4. Small talk drains you, but meaningful conversations wake you up. Have you ever spent an entire evening surrounded by people, only to leave feeling mentally exhausted? Not because you dislike people, but because every conversation stayed on the surface. The weather, celebrity gossip, weekend plans. The same familiar questions repeated over and over. For many people, that's perfectly enjoyable. But for highly intelligent individuals, those conversations often feel strangely empty. Their minds naturally search for patterns, ideas, and deeper meaning. Research on the personality trait known as openness to experience has found strong links with curiosity, imagination, creativity, and intellectual engagement. People who score high on this trait often crave conversations that challenge the way they think. Instead of asking, "What do you do for work?" they're wondering, "What experience changed who you are?" Instead of discussing today's headlines, they'd rather explore why people believe different things in the first place. Instead of talking about success, they become fascinated by purpose, failure, identity, human behavior. Time seems to disappear during these conversations. Hours pass like minutes. Their brain isn't being entertained, it's being stimulated. Unfortunately, this preference can create misunderstandings. Others may assume they're quiet, reserved, or even unfriendly. In reality, they're simply waiting for a conversation that feels real. That doesn't mean small talk has no value. It's often how relationships begin. But highly intelligent people usually don't want to stay there for long. They enjoy conversations that reveal how another person thinks, not just what they did today. Because for them, ideas are often more exciting than events. And understanding another mind is one of the most interesting conversations of all. Sign #5. You feel more than you let other people see. When people imagine intelligence, they often picture someone perfectly logical, calm, unemotional, almost like a machine. Psychology paints a much different picture. Many highly intelligent individuals actually experience emotions with remarkable intensity. The difference is, they don't always show it. Researchers studying gifted individuals have described something known as emotional overexcitability. It refers to an unusually deep emotional response to experiences that others might barely notice. A piece of music, a beautiful sunset, a powerful film, an act of kindness, even the suffering of complete strangers. These moments don't simply register, they stay, they echo. Highly intelligent people often spend hours, or even days, reflecting on experiences that others quickly forget. From the outside, they may appear calm, composed, even emotionally distant, but beneath that calm surface, their mind is processing far more than anyone realizes. They're replaying conversations, analyzing facial expressions, thinking about how someone else felt, wondering whether they could have handled a situation differently. This depth of feeling is sometimes mistaken for oversensitivity. But sensitivity isn't weakness, it's awareness. The ability to notice emotional details that many people overlook. Of course, emotional intelligence and IQ aren't exactly the same thing. One doesn't automatically guarantee the other. But research continues to suggest that many intellectually gifted individuals also experience emotions with unusual depth and complexity. The challenge isn't feeling too much. It's learning how to carry those feelings without becoming overwhelmed by them. Because intelligence doesn't silence emotions, it often makes them richer. And once you understand that, you stop apologizing for caring deeply about things other people barely notice. In the final part, we'll explore the last 2 signs, including why intelligent people often observe more than they speak, why many of them quietly feel like they don't quite fit in, and how all 7 signs connect in a way that completely changes what intelligence really means. Sign #6. You notice more than you say. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately sensed that something felt off? No one had said anything yet. Everyone was smiling. The conversation sounded normal, but somehow you could tell there was tension beneath the surface. Maybe 2 people were avoiding eye contact. Maybe someone's smile looked forced. Maybe the energy in the room simply didn't match the words being spoken. If this happens to you often, it may be more than intuition. Highly intelligent people tend to spend more time observing before reacting. While others are focused on what is being said, they're also paying attention to how it's being said. Tone of voice, facial expressions, body language, timing, contradictions, tiny details that most people overlook. Research on social cognition suggests that stronger analytical thinkers are often better at detecting patterns, not only in numbers or ideas, but in human behavior as well. Their brain is constantly collecting information, not because they're judging people, but because it's naturally trying to understand what's really happening. This is one reason highly intelligent people often speak less during group conversations. It's not that they have nothing to contribute, they're still processing. While others rush to answer, they're connecting pieces together. By the time they finally speak, they've usually considered several different perspectives. Unfortunately, silence is often misunderstood. People assume the quiet person is shy, disengaged, or lacking confidence. But sometimes the quietest person has simply been listening the longest. And listening carefully is one of the most underrated forms of intelligence. Because when you truly observe before speaking, your words tend to carry far more weight. Sign #7. You've often felt like you don't quite fit in. This final sign is perhaps the most personal, and for many people, it's the one that explains all the others. Have you ever felt like you've been slightly out of step with the people around you? Not completely different, not isolated, just different enough to notice. Maybe you've always questioned things that everyone else accepted without thinking. Maybe your interests never matched the conversations happening around you. Maybe you've spent years wondering why certain friendships felt emotionally shallow, even though nothing was technically wrong. Many highly intelligent people describe this quiet feeling throughout their lives. It's not necessarily loneliness, it's a sense that your mind is tuned to a slightly different frequency. Psychologists who study gifted adults have found that many experience richer inner worlds than they can easily explain. Their thoughts move quickly from one idea to another. They're constantly connecting information, asking deeper questions, looking beneath appearances. Over time, this can create the feeling that very few people truly understand how they think. That doesn't mean they're better than anyone else. It doesn't mean they're meant to be alone. It simply means they often need different kinds of conversations, different challenges, and relationships built on genuine curiosity rather than convenience. The moment they meet someone who enjoys exploring ideas, asking thoughtful questions, and thinking deeply about life, something changes. For the first time, they don't have to simplify themselves. They don't have to pretend they aren't curious. They don't have to hide how intensely they think. Instead of feeling different, they finally feel understood. And that experience can completely change the way they see themselves. Final thoughts. If you notice something while watching this video, it probably wasn't just the 7 habits, it was the pattern connecting them. Changing your mind when new evidence appears, delaying meaningful work because your standards are incredibly high, feeling comfortable admitting what you don't know, craving conversations with real depth, experiencing emotions more intensely than people realize, observing quietly before speaking, and sometimes feeling slightly out of place in a world that often rewards speed more than reflection. Individually, these behaviors don't prove someone has a high IQ. Personality, life experiences, and emotional intelligence all shape who we become. But when several of these traits consistently appear together, psychology suggests they often reflect a mind that processes information in a deeper and more flexible way. The interesting part is that society frequently misunderstands these qualities. Curiosity gets mistaken for doubt, silence gets mistaken for weakness, sensitivity gets mistaken for fragility, thinking carefully gets mistaken for overthinking, and questioning assumptions gets mistaken for being difficult. But perhaps those judgments say more about our expectations than they do about intelligence itself. Real intelligence isn't about having an answer for everything. It isn't about winning every argument. And it certainly isn't about making other people feel less intelligent. Real intelligence is the willingness to keep learning, to stay curious, to question your own beliefs, to understand before judging, and to recognize that the more you discover about the world, the more there is still left to discover. So if you recognized yourself in several of these signs, don't rush to label yourself a genius. Instead, see them as an invitation. Keep learning, keep asking questions, keep challenging your assumptions, because intelligence isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a lifelong habit of remaining curious. Now I'm curious about you. Which of these 7 signs felt the most familiar? Leave the number in the comments and tell us why. I read as many comments as I can, and I'd love to hear your perspective. If you enjoyed this video and want more psychology-backed insights into how the mind really works, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.